And now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we continue this journey into and through the most wonderful time of year, in the opinion of many people here, and that is fall. It's not technically fall yet, though, is it? Not according to the calendar, but we can feel it. We can feel it. And it's all good. It's wonderful. Hunting season's now pretty much in full swing. Well, getting to be in full swing. Great fall fishing to be had as well. I was out last weekend with my grandson Carter for the youth hunt. We were hunting at my buddy Scott's place. I've told you before, Scott's very generous and allows us to hunt there, and I do appreciate that. We didn't see anything. We had one morning to hunt because Carter's 16 and this is the last year of the youth hunt, and he now has a job. So we only had one morning, Saturday morning, to hunt. I had Carter stay over at our house that night so we could get a good start on things, a good early start on things. And that way I knew he was out of bed because I'm the guy who woke him up. And it was an absolutely gorgeous morning. It was a cool morning. It was a calm morning. It was a clear morning, and it was beautiful. We were sitting in a Wraith 270 see-through ground blind from Primal Tree Stands over a food plot that Scott had put in on an area that has a lot of deer. Scott's only request was, you can't shoot a buck. He said, I don't care how big the buck is. He says, if the biggest buck, Avery, of your life ever walks in front of Carter, I don't want you to shoot it. I'm good with that, man. It's your property, whatever you want. He says, I only want you shooting does, which, by the way, I am a huge supporter of the youth hunt, but I do believe it should be does only where that's possible. We didn't see anything. Didn't see a thing. So we hunted the youth hunt. I say we. Carter was hunting it. I was there with him. But he didn't take a deer this year. And that's okay. And I stressed to him that is okay, that you're not going to harvest an animal or catch fish even every time you go out. It's part of the process. It's part of the experience. You still have the same anticipation. You're watching the edge of the woods. You're watching the edge of the food plot. As it gets light, you think you can see deer moving. You put the binoculars on them. No, it's just my imagination. It's just my anticipation. It's just my excitement. But that's okay. In looking at the numbers for the combined Liberty Hunt and Youth Hunt, which was last weekend, the Liberty Hunt is physically challenged hunters are allowed to get out early, and the Youth Hunt is, of course, kids are allowed to get out early. Now, people say, oh, the Youth Hunt is going to decimate some people say. It's going to decimate our state's whitetail population. These kids are out there shooting everything. Well, the numbers from the DNR, and these are based on the hunter-reported harvest numbers, and we've never had numbers this early in the season, so, I'm in favor of this. A total of 5,303 animals, deer, were taken during the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt in the entire state of Michigan. 5,000 deer. 4,000 of those were bucks. And looking at the pictures sent to me on my Facebook page, some of them were nice, big, beautiful bucks. The numbers are broken down by county. The number one county for the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt in Michigan last weekend was Sanilac County, followed by Tuscola County, Montcalm County, and then Saginaw County. I also find it interesting looking at these numbers that in the opposite end of the spectrum, the slowest counties were at opposite ends of the state, geographically and demographically. Wayne County had 1 buck checked in for the Liberty Hunt and the Youth Hunt, and Keweenaw County didn't have any. Now, I don't think these numbers mean much of anything. They're just interesting to look at. 5,000 deer taken during the entire Liberty Hunt and Youth Hunt. So for people who say, oh, it's going to decimate the population, well, you can take that criticism off the list. This weekend, as you're hearing the broadcast version of the radio show, is the early doe season in Michigan. So if one of your complaints was about, well, hunters shouldn't be in the field before whatever, pick your date, are you also against the early doe season? I'm not a supporter of the early doe season to the extent that I am the youth hunt, that's for sure. But maybe you're out this weekend chasing small game. Small game season's open now. That's something that often gets overlooked. You know, that's how most of us started. That's how I started. Sitting in a woodlot behind the farm at the base of a tree on a beautiful fall afternoon hunting squirrels. And then when wintertime came around and snow, we were chasing rabbits. And those are still great, wonderful, viable outdoor activities now. But they kind of tend to get overlooked. I did have another interesting experience. I was up at Jay's last week for their anniversary sale, and I took my new crossbow up there to get it looked at. Now, last spring, for the spring turkey season and my spring bear hunt in Ontario, I bought a new crossbow. I'd been shooting Dartons for years, and I love Darton crossbows, but I wanted a bow that you could decock. I didn't want to have to shoot it at the end of every hunt every night. I wanted to be able to safely decock it. So I got a 10-point, and I really like it. It's a very nice machine, and I'm calling it a machine, a tool. But one of the things with these new high-tech, powerful crossbows, you have to keep a real close eye on them. There's so much energy stored in there. If your strings or cables start to get squirrely, you want to make sure to get them looked at and probably replaced. Now, I routinely go over my strings with a string wax or a string lube or something to try to keep them as pliable as I can. But I did notice that they were starting to look just a little bit rough. Now, how could that be after just 5 months? I bought the thing in April. So I took it up to Jay's and said, hey, would you just take a look at it? And they came back to me and said, yeah, you need a whole new set of cables and a new string on a bow that's only 5 months old. Now, I do shoot that probably more than many crossbow shooters do because I like it. But the new strings and cables were not cheap. So just keep in mind, if you buy one of these new crossbows, be prepared to maybe, once a year? In my case, it looks like twice a year, have them swapped out. But it's not something that you want to overlook, that's for sure. While I was up at Jay's, I did buy myself a new tree stand. I bought a new Primal, what was it called? The Mac Daddy 22. If I'm going to be at a tree these days, it's going to be in a ladder stand. My days of climbing up screw-in hooks. And what do we call screw-in hooks in a tree? To be blunt, what do we call them? Gut hooks. Because if you slide down that tree, that's what's going to happen. So these days, I'm going to preferably be in a ground blind, probably one of my beloved Wraith 270 ground blinds, or at least a ladder stand. So I did buy a new ladder stand while I was up there. They had a sale on them, so I got a little bit better price. Speaking of sales, if you're looking for broadheads for the upcoming bow season, Rec Broadheads, I like those guys. A Michigan-based, family-owned, manufactured in Michigan. Use the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15, Avery15. Get 15% off on your order. Go to recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. I have not been fishing. The Angler Quest, she's so mad at me. She's still sitting at the dock. I'm sure she's covered in spiders, maybe some leaves starting to fall on her, and she's cursing my name. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I'll try to get back out there. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Ken Dalton, the pheasant, is going to join us to talk about the upcoming pheasant season, the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. Then Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods talking more about this idea that don't ignore these crossbows or even your compound. You still have time. You got to get them looked at. Maybe need new strings, new cables. You got to be safe out there. In hour number 2, Al Stewart talking about upland bird hunting in Michigan. Our state is a wonderful destination for upland bird hunting. Then Justin Tomei from MUCC checks in. This week's Ask Avery segment, we're going to answer 2 questions. Where do you need the recreational passport tag on your license? Is it all state lands? And the second question is, if you're out hunting and you're a licensed hunter and you see a dog chasing deer or a cat hunting, can you legally shoot it? And in our third hour, Tim Roller talks about casting crankbaits for steelhead and salmon in the rivers. And, of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. The website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget about our live streams. I do at least 2 every week. Behind the Mic segment, live from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio every Wednesday morning at 8:45. And a Wednesday night live every Wednesday night at 7. I hope you can join me there. You can see the Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show. I don't know if you can see it. Well, you can see the live stream of the first segment of the show, yeah, but you can hear the show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest and Polar Craft headquarters. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. If you are looking to do some fall fishing on Saginaw Bay, Linwood Beach is a great place to launch your boat and head out. If you're looking to end your season, to get everything kind of wrapped up, and you want to, I don't want to use the term winterize yet, but if you're done with your boat for a while and you want to get it ready for storage and all that other stuff, Linwood Beach Marina can help you out there as well. Again, the website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. I'm not wishing the season away. There's still a lot of great fall fishing coming up. Right now, though, a lot of people are thinking about hunting seasons. I'll go back to, again, when I was a kid. Squirrel season. In the wintertime, we chased rabbits. Of course, there was firearm deer season. There was no bow hunting that we were involved in at all. But then there was pheasant season. October 20th was a big, big deal. I mean, when I was growing up on the west side of the state, there were still enough wild birds around that I could go out, just me and the English setter, and miss 2 or 3 birds in a trip and still come home with a bird or 2. Those days are probably pretty much gone here in Michigan, but there are some people who have been working very, very hard to reestablish pheasant hunting here in Michigan. One man in particular, who I call the Pheasant, his name is Ken Dalton, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Hey, Ken, welcome back to the show. How have you been?
Hey, Mike, I've been busy.
Busy? Well, what have you been working on?
Well, this past weekend I was at Emily City Fairgrounds at Woods and Water, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Had a booth there, and letting people know about the pheasant program and how they can get their new pheasant license and get out in the fields and actually harvest some birds and have a good time with their families and friends.
Why would we need a separate pheasant license? Isn't that covered under small game?
No, it's not covered under small game. What we have here is we have a pheasant license that is designed to fund the pheasant release program on public hunting land. And when you buy this license, you can go pheasant hunting October, November, and December and harvest up to 2 birds per day if you have a good dog and you're a good shot. That's the funding mechanism.
Well, yeah. If you are not hunting one of these managed areas, do you still need a separate pheasant license? Is that something new?
Yes. No, it's been in law since 2019, but it's on all public land in northern lower and southern lower Michigan, but not in the UP. Gotcha. You have put an awful lot of time, an awful lot of effort into this over the last few years. Ken, why? Well, when I grew up, I missed the heydays of pheasant hunting, but I still had decent pheasant hunting when I was a young man. And then as time went on, the pheasant population dwindled to the point that it was just I just gave up on pheasant hunting for about 30 years until I saw in Outdoor News in 2017 that Wisconsin had a pheasant release program, and it lit a fire in me. And when I dug a little deeper, I found out there was 20 other states that had pheasant release programs that were very successful. And at that point there, Dave Grubbs, he's passed now, he was a famous bird dog trainer, told me if I wanted to get anything done, I needed to get hold of my legislators. Well, they knew me very well after a short period of time. I was extendable over there. I've heard those stories. Randy Jorgensen compares me to a badger. And then when I had a town hall meeting at Castle Creek Golf Course, a legislator was there, and he got up to speak with me, and he says, I talk to this man more than I do my girlfriend. That's why I'm standing here right now, because he would not get off my back. So, well, and that's, but it's that type of tenacity. I always use you, Ken Dalton, as an example of what can be done if somebody has a passion and they're willing to work for it and not take no for an answer. Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I would like to let everybody know also, I have a list right here in front of me that this year is going to be a very, very successful and eventful pheasant season if people want to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. We have new release sites. We have Cass City, Cornish, Crane Pond, Crow Island, Dansville, Erie, Lapeer, Lady Lake, Pinconning, Point Molay, Rose Lake, Stanton, and St. John's Mars. We have 13 release sites this year with over 6,300 roosters being released twice weekly in October and November, and we have our December season back, so it'd be a great time to get out there and put some boots on the ground. Well, let's talk about this whole Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. By the way, the website mphi.info. How is this different than the old put and take program we had in Michigan for so many years? Okay, how this is so much different is the birds are raised by the Michigan Game Bird Breeders Association, the same people that raise the game birds for the shooting preserve industries. I compare that. I tell people that if the shooting preserve industry did not have high-quality, hard-flying birds, they wouldn't be as successful as they are this day. There's the same people raising the birds. And then the birds will be released on unknown release dates after shooting hours, which means in the dark. The old put and take days, they would tell you the truck would be there at 10 o'clock with a load of birds, and it looked like an army had arrived when the truck was there. That's not going to happen anymore. And it's just a way better program than put and take. Although put and take it served its purpose. There was a lot of people that liked put and take, but we dug a little deeper and made it a little better. And I have people that witness that and tell me that all the time, how much they enjoy this program. So you've given us a list of where the birds are going to be released. Is it roosters only, Ken? Yes, it's roosters only. That way you have a chance of successfully harvesting a pheasant in the state of Michigan, because we have lost about 40 years of pheasant hunters in Michigan. And our group is 3 R's: recruitment, retention, reactivation of hunters in the state. And we are doing very well at that. There's a big buzz going on right now about pheasant hunting in Michigan again. Over the weekend, I literally probably talked to over 400 people and almost lost my voice. But what I got out of my conversation with these people is they want to pheasant hunt in Michigan. South Dakota makes about $1.39 million a year hunting in their state. There's no reason why we can't make money in Michigan on pheasant hunting and revive our local economies.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. We have a lot of people here in our state who, unlike you and I, who were able to hunt birds when we were kids growing up, they've never had this opportunity. They don't know what it's like.
No, they have no clue. But they're going to find out this fall. It's gonna be fantastic. We just had that new. I caught a lot of slack about not having a release site in the thumb. I mean, literally, people were mad at me, and I said, "Look, it's not my fault." But this year, I want to give them good news. We have a release site in the thumb, Cat City, over a 200-acre release site, and it's going to really bring a lot of excitement to the thumb now.
So again, to be find out how this works, and I got to take a drink here.
Okay.
Tell me how this works while I take another drink, Ken.
Okay. How does this work? Okay. The way that this works is that when there's birds in the fields, there's boots on the ground. And we get these, you get your $25 pheasant license, and that's our funding mechanism to drive this program to greater places. Hopefully next year we can get maybe 10,000, 12,000 pheasants, 20,000, 20 release sites, and we will just continue building momentum and bring pheasant hunting back to Michigan again.
So how many birds this year?
Over 6,300 birds.
That's not really that many birds, though, when you take a look at it, is it?
Well, it's not that many birds, but compared to what we have, it's a lot of birds. Because I've walked fields before, and I haven't saw nothing forever. There's most people in the state of Michigan, if a rooster walked in front of their car right now, they wouldn't even know what it was. They would think it was a dinosaur or something. That's 6,300 birds on 13 state game areas is a lot of birds. I'm not talking about every state game area in the whole state of Michigan. I'm talking about 13 state game areas, so that gives us opportunity to have great pheasant hunting. And I will tell you what, back in the 60s, the back roads was just packed with cars, M53 going into Brown City, M90. One time I was told that the traffic was from 90 to 53 all the way to Brown City. There was so many people pheasant hunting. And we shot 1 million birds a year in Michigan. And now we're probably down to 10,000 or less wild birds. So if we can put this many birds on the ground right now and bring back this many hunters, I think we're doing really well.
Well, I think you're doing really well as well. Don't take me wrong. That was not meant to be a negative comment at all. But where would you like to take this? How many birds would you like to see released in the future?
Well, New Jersey, as small as the state as that is, they release 36,000 pheasants a year, and it should be shameful for Michigan that we can't get up to that number. But you know what? You have to crawl before you walk. I'm very thankful for where we're at because we could have not had this law signed by the governor, but she signed it and supported it. And I would like to see it really skyrocket, but it all hinges on more pheasant licenses being sold and possibly someday in the future getting some funding through the state to get behind the program and make it even bigger.
Okay, so it comes down to money. So what you would like to see hunters do is buy these pheasant licenses so there's more money to buy more birds.
Exactly. And take a friend pheasant hunting, take a neighbor pheasant hunting, get some kids out in the fields. See, this program's not just for kids, it's for former hunters and old hunters, new hunters, women, children, everybody. I've been at Rose Lake pheasant hunting. I saw a cutest little blonde girl out there. She had a gun and she got a rooster, and that made my day. And like I tell people, that one guy told me, as the president of the MPHI, you could make a lot of money. I says, you don't get it, do you? Nobody in our organization gets paid from the top down, including me, and my paycheck smiles for miles. When I see pheasant hunters out there hunting and bird dogs happy and people back out enjoying pheasant hunting, that's my reward right there.
Well, Ken, you have much respect for me. I know you put a lot of time into this, so I would encourage people to buy these licenses so we can put more birds out there. The website for the Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative is mphi.info, mphi.info. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I will go find myself a great big glass of water to see if I can get rid of this dry throat that suddenly just afflicted me. Go through the entire week and everything's just fine. See here at the microphone and suddenly I have some kind of a weird little allergy attack. But after the break, we'll come back with Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com. And hour number 2, it's Al Stewart, Justin Tomei, and John Pepin. That's all coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. Go ahead and keep trying to call him, John. We'll see if we can get in touch with him. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WILS in Lansing. That's 1320 AM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ DMJ 1320 AM. Of course, there's also a podcast version of the radio show available. I would encourage you, though, to listen to your local AM or FM station if you can to get the content of the show. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946 when Roland Boning invented Ferrultite. Now, that was a glue to bond broadheads to, at the time, aluminum, maybe even wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products and new manufacturing processes. For more info, check them out online. The website is boning.com, BOHNING. Nothing, John? They didn't even answer at the store?
Nope. I got the after hours.
I have a feeling they're having phone problems right now is what's going on, I bet. That's why we can't get through to them. boning.com. That's boning.com. We're trying to get in touch with Kevin Pritchard at Jay's Sporting Goods, and I just talked to Kevin here a little while ago, but it sounds like because we can't get through to the main number at the store either, it sounds like they might be having phone problems at the store. If you would just keep trying to call that, John, because they won't call you back. Just keep trying to call them. Anyway, trying to get in touch with Kevin. I was up there. He's the manager of the archery department at Jay's Clare store. I was up there last week for their anniversary sale. In fact, I was up there to meet with Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors. They had some sales on different Primal stands. In fact, I bought a Primal stand while I was up there. And while I was there, I took my new crossbow up to get it looked at and found out that the strings had to be replaced, the cables had to be replaced, which was really quite a surprise. I brought it up there as a precaution because looking at the strings and cables, they actually kind of looked just fine. I couldn't tell anything was wrong. But they had been telling me, still no answer. That's weird. They had been telling me that with these new crossbows, you have to make sure that you get them checked. Now, I bought this crossbow in April of this spring for the spring turkey hunt and for my spring bear hunt up in Ontario. I put maybe 200 shots through it, which I'm hearing from people who are, know more about this than I do, that, that's a lot of shots through one of these new crossbows. It's not like a compound that you go out and throw a dozen arrows a night. It's not like a recurve or a longbow that you go out and shoot over and over and over and over because you have to practice that way and have to be proficient with it, and you have to put that much time into it to be proficient and to have the confidence. In fact, that's why I quit shooting or hunting with my recurve. I love hunting with a recurve. It is the most rewarding, challenging type of hunting that I've ever done. And I have taken a turkey with a recurve, and I've taken a bear with a recurve. I have not taken a deer with a recurve. And I probably won't at this point because I don't see myself picking the recurve back up. Because you have to spend so much time with that tool to have the confidence that you need. I think any what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say good hunter because I'm not a good hunter. But any hunter who takes what they're doing seriously is not going to walk into the woods if they feel they can't make a quick, clean, humane harvest. That's the goal. Does it always happen? Of course not. Of course not. And if you spend enough time out there with a longbow, a recurve, a compound, a crossbow, or a 30-06, eventually you are going to have a bad shot. But so I took my crossbow up there thinking, they'll say, oh, no, you're fine. They said, no, you need new strings and new cables. It was like well over $100, which kind of took me by surprise because I just put a bunch of money into this brand new crossbow 5 months ago. It's not that I was disappointed. I was just surprised. But just be aware that when you buy one of these new high-tech, high-energy crossbows, they recommend that you have them looked at every year and possibly the strings and cables replaced every year. Now, it sounds like in my case that it's actually going to be twice a year. So anyway, that's a roundabout way of saying that apparently we're not able to get in touch with Kevin, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk with him about, is just the reminder. And it's not just crossbows, it's also compounds. You know, there's a lot of energy stored in these new compounds as well. The strings get bad, the cables get bad, so what you want to do is make sure you put a lube on these strings, whether it's kind of the old-fashioned string wax or one of the new high-tech liquid materials that kind of seeps into the string. That's the best way to do it. Get one of the liquids that you can rub on there, and it'll actually be absorbed into the strings to keep them pliable, keep them moist. But keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them. The last thing in the world you want to do is be out on a hunt, go to draw that bow back if it's a compound, and have the thing come apart in your hands. Or if you're sitting there in a tree stand with a crossbow in your lap and the thing comes apart, comes unglued. You don't want that. Take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea what we'll talk about, but we'll see if we can find something to take up the rest of this first hour of this week's show. My name is Mike Avery, the website MikeAveryOutdoors.com, the email address Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I do want to hear from you. Send me a picture. Send me your comments, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I want to see what you've been up to. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine. Now, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to get right into our content right now, because I want to kind of make up for some time we didn't get a chance. Apparently having some phone problems, but we are able to reach Kevin Pritchard, who is the manager of the archery department at Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare. Kevin, I appreciate you sticking with us and getting these things worked out. How are you today?
I'm just fine.
Hey, listen, it was nice to see you last week and the rest of the team when I was up there at the store, but I was a little bit surprised. I was telling the story in the previous segment about how I brought my new crossbow up there that I bought from you guys just 5 months ago. And just to have you look at it, and Sam Austin said, Avery, you need new strings and cables. That was kind of a surprise. Kevin?
Yeah, I think people need them changed more than they realize and more than the company tells them they need to, because the more you hunt with these high-performance crossbows, when it's at full draw, it's sitting there stretching. There's even more tension on it, so it starts wearing into the cables. So, yeah, you should have it checked. At least once a year, if not more. And
I think in my case, I'm going to have to do it twice a year. But I looked at it, and being just a shooter, just an archer, I thought I saw maybe a little wear on the string, but I didn't know what I was looking for. What should we, obviously we got to bring it into guys like you, but what should we look for? What should we be aware of?
Yeah, that's the main wear spot, is right on the top where you're sliding the arrow down the rail, right in the center of the string. You can roll that serving over and look at that, and that's where your first wear is going to show up.
Is there anything well, in the cables, though, you can't see any damage or wear, can you?
Yeah, when it gets bad enough, you will. Like I say, you need to really look at the model of the bow and find out where that wear point is, but it's a lot of times where it tracks around the cables or in the cams from that cable.
So what can we as shooters do to try to lengthen the life of our strings and cables?
Rail lube, of course, on top of the rail, and I also use the rail lube. I'll soak a Q-tip and go around the cables where it takes up on the cams also, so that keeps friction down there.
And are we talking, I know we're talking primarily crossbows, but what about compounds? Isn't this a concern with compounds as well?
Well, they're not under as much stress. So there's just waxing the strings and on the compounds, and usually 2 years. I've shot bow with 2 years, and strings still look new. Where I do have a crossbow that a year later it was ready for cables. So
well, and
they're under a lot more stress.
Yeah, because a compound is only under stress when you draw it. A crossbow is under stress the whole time you're sitting there and the thing is cocked.
Correct. Even more stress when it's cocked.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Even when they're sitting supposedly at rest, they are still under stress. A
lot, yes.
Well, I just thought it was a good idea to get you on the show to talk about this because, it's for one thing, it's an added expense that people need to be aware of. You spend a lot of money on these new crossbows, and then have to turn around and spend over $100 on new strings and cables. It's just something to be aware of.
Right, high performance bow, high performance maintenance.
High performance price.
Yep.
So how are things going right now at Jay's in these last few weeks before the archery season? You got to be busy.
Oh yes, it's busy. We got a wall full of bows waiting for parts and to come in to get it fixed, and we got guys coming in the door left and right too, wanting stuff done to the compounds and crossbows. But it's gaining traction.
Are you still selling new bows this late in the year?
We are. Yep. Yes, we are. We did that anniversary sale past weekend. I was looking at the sales there from last year to this year. This year, the crossbow sales were down just a little bit. Compounds were up just on that weekend to weekend. So that was surprising.
And honestly, I think that's going to make some people happy because there are still a lot of people out there who don't like crossbows and say, we should be shooting compounds and recurves. So but hey, it is what it is. Whatever gets somebody out in the woods, I say I'm in favor of it.
Oh yeah, same here.
Is there still time to get a bow into you to get it tweaked before the season, or are we pushing it now?
We can do basic stuff. Of course, if you do need string and cables and I'm out, you're probably not getting them now in time. Yeah. So, no, you need tuning. We can do that stuff.
All right. Speaking of tuning, am I now because I haven't shot it since I got the new strings and cables on my crossbow, is my aim point going to be off? I mean, I will shoot it to be sure, but am I going to need to resight that thing in?
I'm going to say yes. I tell every customer when we put new string and cables on, shoot it, resight it if need be, because 9 times out of 10, you'll be on the target, but it might not be that same bullseye you hit before.
Yeah, you just don't want to take that chance. Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods, appreciate you helping me out. Appreciate your time. The website for Jay's is jaysportinggoods.com. That's jaysportinggoods.com. 2 superstores, one in Clare and one in Gaylord. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk about upland bird hunting and more. Al Stewart will join us. Then Justin Tomei from MUCC. Want to find out what they are working on. And this week's Ask Avery questions. Where do you need a recreational passport? And what do you do if you see a feral dog or cat in the woods while you're hunting? That's coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, this is first and foremost a radio show. It is scheduled, recorded, produced, distributed, uploaded, as a radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. If for nothing else, then the reason that the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. So, yes, if you can get us on your local AM or FM station, that's the way to do it. If not, if your local station, I call it affiliate, doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show available? Now, the podcast is nothing more than the audio from the radio show made available somewhere other than on your local radio station. So where do you get to listen to the podcast, Avery? Well, you can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it on the Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, which now I think Twitter's now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, and even on YouTube and more. Anywhere you can hear a podcast, I think you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I am a big fan of podcasting, though, and each month I do podcast for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Primal Outdoors, Polar Craft Boats, and Angler Quest Pontoons. And today, after we're done in the studio here, I will be recording this month's Angler Quest podcast with John Bergsma of a Great Lakes Fisherman's Digest TV. So keep an ear out for that. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice, when you are hearing my voice, I do certainly appreciate you being along with me. I wouldn't be able to do what I have for so many years without your support. The fact that you watch the old TV show, you listen to the radio show, you listen to the podcast, you follow me on social media, I do certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. That is much. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'm not ready to retire. I think I've got a few more years in me. Of course, God will make the ultimate decision on that, but I plan to be around for a few more years, and I thank you for that. So it is the fall, right? I mean, there's some great fall fishing coming up. I think realistically, I say every year, boy, I'm going to get out there in the fall. I'm going to chase some fall walleye, and I never do. And I have a feeling it's going to be the same thing this year. Probably not going to happen because I started to get involved in other things. The fall hunting seasons. I mean, you look at Michigan right now, right? The early goose season is open. We've got the early doe harvest, the special doe harvest going on in Michigan this weekend. Bear season is open. Small game season is open now this weekend as you're hearing the show. So there are a lot of different hunting opportunities. And Michigan is known for some great outdoor recreational opportunities, especially hunting. In fact, I think it's still the case. We are looked at as one of the top upland game bird states in the country. When I think about upland birds, I think of woodcock, I think of grouse. Is turkey an upland bird as well? I don't know. But when I think about fall turkey hunting, I think about one guy, Al Stewart. Al was a DNR wildlife biologist for so many years. And nationally known. I mean, this guy has had more national accolades from sportsmen's and conservation groups and hunting groups across the country than anybody else I know. These days, he's over at Hillsdale College. And he's working with the Nimrod Society there. We'll talk more about that. Al's with us now, though, on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Al, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for the kind words, Mike.
Well, they are much deserved, Al. I mean, you have been a force on the conservation and hunting scene in Michigan for as long as I've been sitting here in this TV and radio shows.
Yeah, I remember when we both started, sort of.
When we were both a little younger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and not even thinking about retirement.
No, not at all. Well, you aren't very good at retirement, are you, Al?
No, I failed at retirement after 50 years with the DNR. So yeah, but I landed an even better job at Hillsdale College. So it's really been fun, and it's keeps me active in the conservation world and keeps me active. At all really works out well.
Hillsdale is unique in today's world of large public universities who tend to not embrace hunting and the shooting sports. You guys there at Hillsdale are just the opposite.
Oh, yeah. Hillsdale College takes no state or federal dollars to run the system, and they're ranked as one of the top liberal arts colleges in the country. And but the real change with that is that they have a shooting range that's ranked as one of the top 5 in the world, and Hillsdale College is home to the USA shooting and Olympic shooters. And the Olympics for shooting will be in Paris next year. And so these U.S. Olympic shooters come to Hillsdale College to use the range and practice and get ready for the Olympics. So they were just here this spring for the tryouts for the Olympic team was held at Hillsdale College. So yeah, it's really in the middle of all of it, and you just wouldn't expect that for someplace in Michigan or some smaller town like Hillsdale to have such a world position out there. And so it's fun for me, and as part of the Nimrod Education Center, to have a little bit of that, loosely under my umbrella. So I get to talk with the USA Olympic shotgun shooting coach, and we're friends. We went fishing for walleye, down on Lake Erie. So yeah, I'm loving every minute of it. And Hillsdale College, talks the talk and walks the walk, and that's really important in today's world of Second Amendment and hunting and fishing overall.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me more about this Nimrod Education Center that you're involved with, Al.
Yeah, so my job is really very unique. It's one of a kind in the country, and my job is to help inform the public, particularly the non-hunting public, about the contributions that hunters, anglers, and shooters make to conservation. So how, when you buy a hunting license, how that goes back to conservation, restoring wild turkeys, things like that. Or when you buy a shotgun shell, that money from that, parts of that go back into conservation, and that's called the Pittman Robinson Fund or the Wildlife Restoration Fund. And then on the fishing end of it, there's similar dollars that go into fish management. And so that's what's allowed us, to, in the 1900s, take species of scarcity to animals of abundance. And it's all been done by hunters. And so my job is to help, inform this voting public, not necessarily trying to turn everybody into a hunter or angler, but so people have the facts and understand how this system works and who really is paying for conservation. So you can look at, like I said, the wild turkey, one of the top conservation restoration stories of all time. And, there was a point there, and by 1900, all the wild turkeys in Michigan were completely eliminated, extirpated from this state. And now through the, hunters' monies and hunters' support, we were able to restore the turkeys, where now there are turkeys available for hunting in every county in the state of Michigan. So that's part of the story that my job revolves around there at Hillsdale College. And it's a little bit like the wildlife councils that you've been involved with and helped with.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You guys you're preaching the same message, I think.
It's exactly the same message. In fact, one of the responsibilities of my job is to try to establish wildlife councils in all states.
Really?
So right now, there's the one in Colorado, the first one. There's the one in Michigan, and then slowly working with other states to establish a similar setup. And in Michigan, the Wildlife Council has really helped. They focused on two major population areas, the Detroit area, the Grand Rapids area, and began with sharing this message about, again, who pays for conservation and, why we have even eagles, going from being endangered species to not listed at all. And it's not that hunters hunt eagles, it's that hunters pay for the habitat or help contribute to the habitat that eagles use, and in the process of, trying to, say, provide good habitat for, say, rabbits, just simplify it, that eagles would eat. So,
hang tight, Al. There are certainly some great conservation success stories out there today. And Al Stewart's been involved in several of those along the way. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Al. By the way, the website for Hillsdale is hillsdale.edu. That's hillsdale.edu. Check them out. We'll take a break. More with Al Stewart coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. So you know what this sound is, right? That's the sound of my Rapid River knife opening. It's the knife I carry in my pocket every day. I think a good knife is just a very valuable tool. It is something you can use every day. But the thing about a knife is it's several things, right? A knife is only as good as the edge that's on it, which is a function of the steel it's made from. Rapid River knives are made from the highest quality steel. They are handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. They come with a lifetime guarantee, and they will sharpen this knife for the life of your knife. I would highly recommend, if you get a chance, you stop by the showroom on US 2 just east of Rapid River. It's very impressive. Lots of knives, lots of mounts. You can watch them make knives. You can buy a knife. You can have it engraved right there. If you can't make it to the showroom, check out the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. And you will know what I mean. And Rapid River Knives make great... I don't want to push the season here. You know that big holiday that comes up right at the end of the year? The one that we celebrate that is... it's not New Year's. Put it this way. It's the big holiday at the end of the year that's not New Year's. I don't even want to mention it yet because I see stores that have displays out already. But we share gifts. A Rapid River knife is a great gift for that holiday. We're talking now with Al Stewart. Al is he's with the Nimrod Education Center at Hillsdale College. The website for Hillsdale is hillsdale.edu to hillsdale.edu. Al, before the break, you mentioned turkeys a couple of times. Is a turkey considered an upland game bird?
Well, actually, in Michigan, it's considered a big game species, kind of by the law. But generally, it has fallen into upland game birds. Yes. Yep.
So upland game, we've got woodcock, we've got grouse, turkeys. Technically, is a pheasant an upland game bird?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So all of those in Michigan have been, generally doing well. Michigan's ranked as for woodcock probably the top production state in the country. And we harvest more woodcock here in Michigan than the combination of most every other state out there. Rough grouse, we're 2 or 3 in the country for rough grouse harvest and participation by hunters. We share that, Minnesota and Wisconsin are the other ones in the top 3. So, we sit, pretty good on upland game birds, really, and we rank in like 6th in the nation for wild turkey harvest. There's a turkey season in every county of the state, which is really exceptional when you consider that the ancestral range where turkeys used to live is south of the line from Bay City to Muskegon. So we've been able to not only restore turkeys in the state, but expand their range. So that's pretty cool. And then, when we were talking before about, restoration of animals and how Pittman Robinson dollars, how sportsman's dollars, pay for these things. the one thing we always tend to overlook, or I tend to overlook a lot, is the next component of that, and that's called protection. To hire that money's used to hire conservation officers to help them, protect the resource for those of us in a state, but for those of us that are legal hunters that follow all the rules. These are the people that help protect those species, and so that we follow the rules of engagement that are set out there for our hunting or fishing activities to keep this wildlife into perpetuity, so that we don't lose them like we did in the 1900s, and where there's social value given to all the wildlife species, but it's sustainable, that you can hunt them, you can have them, you can produce a habitat, and you can eat them. It's a great package. It's a great package.
Despite the claims from anti-hunters, I can't see a scenario in today's world, I can't even imagine this, where we would allow a species to be hunted to extinction anymore. It's inconceivable these days, isn't it?
Yeah, and no species has ever gone extinct because of hunting.
What about buffalo? Because that's the one I always think of.
Yeah, it is. But when buffalo happened, that was prior to having things like the Department of Natural Resources, people who had the responsibility, the statutory responsibility to oversee the species. That was a whole another time. It was wildlife management wasn't even on the a word, a profession. So those things happen, but from like 1900 and until now, and the Pittman-Robertson Act was occurred in 1936. That really helped give funding to the process of wildlife management. People understood, Teddy Roosevelt, part of it was, hey, we have lost a lot of species here due to a misunderstanding of how wildlife subsists. Yeah. And, we just thought the resources were unlimited. So there was no reason to have rules. There was, they were hunting deer year round. They were hunting turkeys year round. There was just no real protection at all. And to speak to that is there were no rules, but also there was no grocery store where you could go and get food. People were subsisting off the land with the idea of, that resource was unlimited. And we found out that's not true. But then with wildlife management, we've now come in and said, okay, we can have this species, and we just don't hunt them during the nesting period, or there's just different times where we can, when we hunt them or fish for them, here's what we have to do in order to have a sustainable population, and that's what everybody wants.
I actually feel like you can protect and expand a population by actually having a hunting season for them, which seems counterintuitive in some ways.
Well, it does, but the other side is who really cares about wildlife? So if you're not hunting them, if there isn't a way to take something and so you can have it for dinner, people lose interest. And if people don't care about it, then they aren't going to exist. So if there's like rough grouse, people really like to hunt rough grouse, and because of that, there are organizations like the National Rough Grouse Society who help put money and do partnership activities with the DNR and others to create the habitat that rough grouse require. And it's not just for rough grouse then that benefit from that. There's a suite of other species like rufous-sided towhees that live in these young forests, these young aspen stands that are being managed by friends of the rough grouse, and the DNR. And that there's a focus on how you move forward with this management. There's all sorts of examples of that, but I think it's key that, in hunting them, people appreciate them and they really want to have them on the landscape, and they're willing to give money out of their pocket, their personal money, through things like Rough Grouse Society to do that, through banquets or Ducks Unlimited. I mean, any of these, and then you match the dollars that come in from the hunting and fishing licenses, and every dollar counts, and we make a difference. And in Michigan, our forest management people are very focused on young forest management, and so that's what puts us, number one in the country, number one in the world, woodcock management and woodcock harvest, and rough grouse and deer for that matter. They like stands too. So there's just a lot that goes into it. Michigan's fortunate to have lots of sportsmen, lots of people and professionals in the natural resources world that know what they're doing. We, as just a hunter, we don't always agree with some of these things, but I can tell you, after working 50 years with the DNR, there's a lot of great professionals working there trying to do the best for the people of Michigan.
Al, we kind of let our conversation get a little off topic today. We didn't end up talking about hunting these species, but one final question for you. When I look at upland game bird management, I look at wild turkeys and what has been done, what man has done to trap and relocate birds. I look at pheasant hunting and the different put and take and the new Michigan Pheasant Hunting Initiative. That man is directly involved in that. But when it comes to grouse and woodcock, what can man do there? I mean, you guys don't trap and transfer or anything like that with those two species, do you?
No, but what you need is young forests. You need young aspen stands. It's a cookbook way of producing it, but here's the deal: is when a glacier goes, leaves, one of the first tree species that come in after that glacier leaves is aspen. It's young forest, and then through what we call succession, it might move into older growth trees, oaks, or other pieces. But grouse are really found in those aspen stands, those young aspen stands, and the key to that is to do your management so that there's always aspen around. So you have to clear cut some of that aspen in order to maintain the aspen. But once that aspen is lost or gone, if it goes through succession and becomes that forest becomes oak, is no longer there. And when that happens in Michigan, you won't see the number of grouse. You won't see the number of woodcock. So what can man do? Man can continue to support, the agency in doing timber management on the state and federal land, but they can also do that on their own property.
Al, listen, always a pleasure. I got to let you go. It's always a pleasure, regardless of which way our conversation takes us. Al Stewart from Hillsdale College and the Nimrod Education Center. The website for Hillsdale is hillsdale.edu. That's hillsdale.edu. I could talk for the entire 3-hour show with Al, but the clock says I have to do otherwise. We'll take a break. When we come back, Justin Tomei from MUCC right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Michigan-made VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and then snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? It makes complete sense. I'm surprised nobody's done this before. But Paul Perrone, VersaSkins owner, came up with this concept a few years ago, and it's proving to be extremely popular. Go to the website, versaskins.com, versaskins.com, to see what I mean. and check them out. And if you need big sizes, I'm talking like 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can be the source for you. VersaSkins.com. I want to turn our attention now to the good folks at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Their website is mucc.org, mucc.org. Once in a while, we will talk with their executive director, Amy Trotter. Often we talk with their chief information officer, Nick Green. This time around, a real treat. We get to talk with he's joined us before, but he's not as familiar of a voice. Justin Tomei joins us on this week's show. Justin, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing real well, real good. Hey, listen, remind me, what's your title there? What's your position there?
I am the policy assistant. I do full-time policy work, and I'm one of the lobbyists for MUCC. So our policy department is a group of 3. It's Amy, myself, and then we have a Michigan State student serves as an intern as well.
So you work on such things as commercial guiding, commercial fishing, changes in the mentored youth program, all those different types of things.
Those are my big 3 for this fall. Yep.
Well, let's talk more about those. The commercial guiding. Now, this, I thought that was a done deal. I thought you had that pushed through.
So we've been trying to do this for 15 years. I've only been around for 2 now, but last session we thought we got pretty close. We got it through committee on a unanimous vote, and then it just kind of stalled out on the House floor in a limited legislative session with an election year. This year, it is already out of committee. It's an identical bill. It is out of committee in the Senate, through the Senate, and now is in the House, and we're hoping to get a committee meeting this month still.
Commercial fishing. Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Commercial fishing. So we're still working on getting a draft introduced. We have our champion that's going to be pushing it for us this year. And for those that don't know, it's kind of the who, what, when, where of commercial fishing and ensuring that our sport fish stay out of commercial nets. I'm pretty sure that you talked about it back earlier this year, the picture of all the dead walleye in the nets in Saginaw Bay. Perfectly legal.
Exactly.
So,
that's what I was going to say. And what that guy did, there was nothing technically illegal about it. So that's why regulations have to be changed. For example, that they should be required to check their nets on a regular basis, like a trapper on land would have to do, right?
Correct. This bill, the statute hasn't been updated in about 50 years, so this bill just modernizes it, putting things like that in there, what can be caught in the nets, bycatch studies, really keeping a better eye on the commercial industry and making it more appropriate for the day and age that we live in.
And we're talking here the licensed anglers. We're not talking the native anglers, right? The tribal.
Correct. This is for state licensed commercial fishermen. This is separate from the consent decree.
And what about mentored youth?
So we have a mentored youth program that MUCC helped pass a number of years ago that allowed kids under 10 to hunt, within arm's reach of a mentor. Several other rules that go along with that. But we also had a member come to us a year or 2 ago and explain that she has a special needs son who can perform the physical aspects of hunting, but is unable to comprehend a written hunter safety test. So with the mentored license, he'd only be able to hunt those couple of years, and then he's unable to obtain a hunting license legally. So she came to us, it went through our policy process, and we passed it, and now we're working on a bill with legislative leaders that would kind of change the mentored youth system to a mentored hunt system that would allow, special needs or other disabled adults within certain parameters to be able to hunt on a mentored license without having to take that written hunter safety test. So we can still keep those people in the woods doing the things that they love to do, with help and direct supervision of a mentor.
I just find it fascinating that there is a process that you guys at MUCC have that an individual member can come to you, express a concern, and sometimes these things become reality. It's a very unique and I think kind of a cool process, especially in today's world.
Yeah, that process is one of the things I oversee in my role at MUCC. But the mentored youth license, itself came from an electrician in Dorr. He wrote a policy that went through our process, actually failed once, but then he brought it back with some changes, and within a number of months, he was at a bill signing with the governor, putting the mentored youth license into law. So we provide an opportunity for individual people in the state of Michigan to really affect natural resources and conservation change, and it is one of the things that sets us apart from other conservation organizations.
Well, I appreciate that, Justin. Keep up the good work. Appreciate your time this week, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again soon.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Justin Tomei of MUCC, the website MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. Honestly, there's more than one story of an individual who came to MUCC with an idea and was able to get the backing of the group. And MUCC's got some chops, so they can get some things done. I think it's very cool. MUCC.org. We'll take a break. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, a couple of interesting questions. One of them about where do you have to have a recreational passport? The other one is, what do you do if you see a dog chasing deer or a cat blatantly hunting an upland game bird? You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WHTC in Holland. That is 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question that you would like me to answer directly or that you would like me to pass along to somebody else, maybe an MUCC or DNR, etc. Best way to get those questions to me is Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Although this week's question came up from last week's Wednesday Night Live segment. Now, Wednesday Night Live is a live stream that I've done almost every Wednesday night for the last several years now. It's at 7 o'clock. You can see it on my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, on Twitter. It's not currently on Instagram, though we're trying to figure out a way to go live on Instagram simultaneously as well. The question came up about where do you have to have the recreational passport, that little thing on your license plate. I thought it was for state parks and state boat launches. But the conversation came up that no, you need it for places other than that. In fact, it was even stated by somebody who was joining us on the live stream that you needed it for all state land, which I thought sounded really like an overreach, an overstretch to me. So that was the first question that came up. The second question was, what happens if you see a dog running a deer? Or if you see dogs running wild, say a pack of dogs running wild on state land? Or what happens if you're sitting in your tree stand and you see a cat come wandering by that doesn't have a collar, you're not in somebody's backyard, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's obviously hunting, it's hunting. It's after some kind of a game bird species. I don't know the answer to these. That's why I'm posing the question. And we had it all set up where I had somebody in the DNR who was standing by to answer this. That's not going to happen this week. Again, we couldn't get through to him, which kind of seems to be a little bit of a theme for this week's show. I've done an awful lot of these shows over an awful lot of years, and I find that shows have a personality. Some of them are very friendly, and they smile back at you, and they give you a big hug, and they make it easy and enjoyable. Some of them are a little more cantankerous. In fact, some of them just don't even want to cooperate at all. And that's kind of what I'm feeling from this week's show. It just doesn't want to cooperate. So, since we can't get in touch with the folks that we wanted to get in touch with who had agreed to join us at this time and answer these specific questions, I'm going to have to put these two questions on hold and try to answer them next week. I apologize for that, but that's the best I can do. I can tell you that there was a time in my life, well, the statute of limitations is over now, right? I know I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I love dogs. I can tolerate cats. And we'll just leave it at that. I do think that dogs should not be allowed to run wild, and I think that people who have cats and turn them out at night, I don't think that's a good practice, because we know that a cat can be a very, very effective predator, a very, very effective hunter. We've got a pretty good track record here, though, on the Ask Avery segment about reaching people and getting questions answered. I did not know till the last minute that we weren't going to be able to do this, or I would have done an end run and found a different question to answer. So all I can do is apologize for the fact that this week's question was not directly answered. I can tell you this: I will do my absolute best to get all three of these questions answered next time. And if you have a question for me that you would like me to try to get answered, or something that I could answer directly myself, send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and I will do my absolute best to make sure that we can give you a good, accurate answer, because there's nothing worse than having a question about how does this work, or how do I do this, or is this legal? Because I believe the vast majority of hunters and anglers are good, law-abiding people, and the last thing in the world you want to do is to unintentionally break some kind of a fish or game law. You know, the people who go out and do it intentionally, they're criminals. They're dirtbags. They're violators. They're poachers. We are not in that group. We are in a group who go out there and want to do our best to do the right thing. To do the right thing, you have to have the right information, the right knowledge. And one of the reasons for the Ask Avery segment is to try to provide that information and that knowledge. And thank you again to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org, at securitycu.org. Coming up after the break, I think, and I pray Tim Roller will join us.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. So glad to have you along with us. I just got an email from our guy from last hour who couldn't join us. That's another story. It's been an interesting show in that we've had some things kind of working against us on this week's show, and that's fine, because I get to wrap up with 2 very good guests and 2 very, very good guys. Tim Roller is a guy that I've known for a long, long time. I first met him back when I had the TV show, and we were fishing, I think, on the Manistee River, and I was impressed with a lot of things. The guy he's very knowledgeable. He's very intense, but not to a fault. He's very detail-oriented. And the knowledge that he has, he's very personable, and he has the ability to share that knowledge and share that information. In fact, I enjoyed spending time with him so much that when I found out he was a very passionate deer hunter as well, I asked him if he would be a pro staffer for the old Outdoor Magazine TV show, and we worked together in that capacity for many years. Well, then Tim broke my heart because he came to me one time, and I knew this was coming. He said, Mike, I enjoy this. I think it's a lot of fun, but Tim Roller, want to go out and do my own show, so I'm not going to be able to work with you on the Outdoor Magazine TV show anymore. Again, I was disappointed, but I was also, I got it. I understood it. And I wished Tim well, because I've always thought if you have a passion for something and you feel, depending on how you look at this, you either feel God pulling you or pushing you to a direction, or you just feel it's something you have to do. You've got to do it. Because if you don't, you will likely spend the rest of your life saying, what if I would have done that? I wish I would have done that. And even if what you are trying to accomplish turns out not to be successful, depending on how you judge such things, at least you will have been able to say, look, I went out and I did it. And Tim was very successful with the Whitetail Journey TV show. Very successful. He has since decided to move a different direction as well, and he's extremely successful with that too. But that doesn't mean I don't stay in touch with my old friend Tim Roller. In fact, he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tim, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for that. It's good to be talking to you today.
Well, always a pleasure to talk with you. You're an extraordinarily busy guy. You've got so many irons in the fire. Can I ask you, what are you doing these days?
Man, everything I can. We've reached a great point in life where it's like you said, some transition has happened in the last kind of 5 to 10 years, really, and it's good. I'm helping a lot of people right now with something I'm really passionate about, which is just kind of overall health. I've gone through that and experienced that, and have been able to help a lot of other people with that, and so we're doing that, and that encompasses all kinds of different things, and part of that is just getting out. And like you said, I love that, what you were talking about there, because it's really about, when we get to the end of life and whatever that is, or we get to later stages in life, what do we, how nice is it to get there with no regrets, right? And to do things, and regardless of if we're successful or not, I think so many successes come through the trials leading up to those successes, right? And maybe failing. Some of the greatest things I've learned in my life have come, whether it's in the outdoors. When I was starting to become a guide, I had to try a lot of things, and I failed at a lot of things, but I found out maybe what not to do or how to hone those things and become better at that. So I love all that, what you were talking about. And that's really kind of my focus as I get later on in my life now, is kind of helping other people achieve those things. I find great satisfaction and gratification in passing those things on to other people.
Well, one of the things in my mind, there's so many things, but one of the things you're really well known for is, I don't want to say you were the guy who discovered it, but you were certainly one of the pioneers, and you were one of the people who really promoted this whole concept of casting crankbaits to kings and steelhead in the rivers in the fall. Now everybody does it, Tim, but when you first started doing it and talking about it and promoting it, it was kind of out there on the edge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know anybody else that was doing it. And again, that's one of those things kind of that we were just talking about. It was out of, I don't want to say desperation, but I just wanted to find out. It never made sense to me that those kings could be caught right up to the pier heads. I mean, guys, in this time of the year right now, you go to the pier heads and there's guys just literally trolling inside the harbor mouth up and down the, west side of the state, and they're catching salmon like crazy on body baits and spoons and all kinds of stuff that just mimic fish, right? Mimic the alewives and stuff. And I never could understand the fact that those fish would come in the river and all of a sudden stop doing that. And so there was a certain amount of trial and error there. And I just one day decided I'm going to commit to trying this. And once I found out what was possible with it and then kind of dialed it in, it became pretty incredible. We put out King Crankin', which is a DVD that explained all the ins and outs of it, kind of everything I'd learned and how successful we were with it, showed a bunch of fish being caught that way. And like you said, it kind of exploded. And I'm okay with that, because there was a lot of people that were really frustrated and thought the only way you could you could quote unquote catch a salmon was by snagging it. I think a lot of things led to that over the years when snagging was legal, and quite honestly, the DNR at the time was saying that, that was kind of how they wanted to get them out of the rivers, and people didn't think there was legitimate ways to go out and actually sport fish them and catch them. And so when people found out there was, it caught on pretty quick, and I love seeing guys go out there. It's a pretty phenomenal way to catch those fish, and it's just a load of fun. So I love kind of being on the forefront of that, if that's what it was, and again, just showing people the way, and seeing it explode now all these years later is pretty cool.
Isn't it crazy that at one time, like you say, the DNR actually promoted the act of snagging as a way to get those fish out of the rivers?
Well, it was legal, and when I started guiding, it was still legal. The Manistee was the last river in the state where it became illegal, and as a guide, when you're out there, legitimately fishing and not snagging, and you're surrounded by it, I mean, we got laughed at a ton, and understandably, I got it, because those guys are out there just, a lot's changed, right? And I don't want to throw the DNR under the bus by any means, because I think they've got one of the hardest jobs in the state, trying to manage one of the, if not the, I consider one of the top states in the entire U.S. for what we have as far as hunting and fishing opportunities. But yeah, a lot's changed on all sides in the past a whole lot of years here.
So if you did describe this, maybe I was thinking of something else that you and I had experienced, and my mind wandered here for a second. But how did you, that very first time out there on the river, I mean, did you have some Rapalas with you that you just happened to throw out there, or what was the thinking? What was the mindset?
I really just got to a point one day I kept thinking about this, like, how could I make this work? How could I make this work? I knew some guys, I knew a couple guys that were having success with spinners. But that was a technique that I just didn't have patience for me. To fish a spinner really effectively in the river for these migratory fish, where they set up and stuff, it's a real slow retrieve, and you really want that big wobble going. And I'm kind of a let's go full speed, pedal down kind of guy. And so when I knew that was happening, I literally just one day went to a sports store, and I was kind of walking around, and I saw a bin of clearance body baits. It was kind of towards the end of season, right? And coming into the fall, and they were trying to get rid of these. And I'm like, that's it, I'm trying this. And I bought a bunch of them. And I just started going out on there and casting these things around in different areas and trying to get work. And the first day I did it, I forget how many I hooked up doing it. But that moment, you can look back on moments in your life. That was a moment in my life that I look back on, and it literally changed kind of a whole lot of things for me going forward. It was the first time I threw one of those things out and a king grabbed it. I was screaming like a little girl. I swear, there was nobody around me. I was just like, it works, right? It works. Like, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And it was like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen here? And,
so you were you didn't have clients with you. You're just out there yourself poking around.
No, I would never take clients on and go, hey, we're going to try something I've never done before, and let's see if this works. No, mm-hmm. I had too much respect for the people that were coming up and spending their hard-earned money, and I wanted to give them the best opportunity I could. And so, yeah, I would go out and do this on my own, trying to figure stuff out. And the first day I put clients on it, oh my gosh, it was incredible. So, yeah, it was amazing. I still remember those first days doing it and finding out that it could work. And then once I started dialing it in, it got pretty goofy. It got pretty crazy.
We're talking with Tim Roller, former fishing guide, former outdoor TV fishing host. Tim, where do we find you online these days? If people want to learn more about you, where do we look?
Yeah, look me up on Facebook. That's kind of where I'm most active and where people can kind of keep up with what's going on, and they can contact me through that.
Tim Roller on Facebook. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll talk more with Tim Roller about this concept of casting crankbaits for kings and probably steelhead in the rivers too. And I got to follow up. His client caught a world record brown trout doing this. It's no longer the world record, but how did that change things? And more right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show all over the great state of Michigan on AM and FM stations, more than 30 of them. In fact, you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. Rich Krazan, owner, can be your source for food plots, for property management, for encouraging critters to stay on your property. And I say critters, we think of food plots for whitetails primarily, but they benefit a lot of other species as well. I mean, turkeys and just songbirds and rabbits and squirrels and everything else that's out there. It's getting kind of late now to get into food plot, or is it? Check with Rich to find out more about that. The website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Right now we're talking with Tim Roller. If you want to learn more about Tim, you can look him up on Facebook. But Tim's a very interesting guy, former fishing guide, former host of a very popular whitetail hunting show. And these days, he's branched out, and I'm going to call it generically kind of a life coach role, but he's still very, very active, obviously, in his passions for the outdoors. Tim, this concept, again, of casting crankbaits for fish in the river, is that just for kings, or does that go over into steelhead as well?
Oh, no, the steelhead love it as well. The steelhead absolutely love it. We change the baits a little bit as far as sizes and types as far as shapes to get a little different action on them. But it opens up so much water to people. I'll take, my home waters have always been the Manistee. And so if you're familiar with the Manistee and so many rivers up and down both coasts, when logging was taking place back in the 1800s, I mean, we still have logs in the rivers from that, over 140 years old, that created these log jams and different. Some are sunken, some are sticking up, whatever. But these fish will sit in and around them, and sometimes they'll get right in them, depending on conditions. And you just can't get any other technique through there without getting hung up. You can run these crankbaits right over top of that stuff, and it's pretty crazy, especially once the steelheads start coming in the fall. And if they're not sitting right around salmon that are spawning, once they start to set up into kind of more winter lies, they'll get in and around those logs, and you can come right over top of them with these, and many times watch them fish come out of them and attack them. So, yeah, equally as effective for steelhead. Tweak it a little bit in how we do it and what we use, but incredible concept and technique as well. So
you concentrate on these log jams. Is that your primary point of focus?
It's one of them. There are so many. There's a lot of variables. So it depends on what the fish are doing, which is influenced by a lot of different things. Are they actively moving? Have they set up? What are the water temperatures doing? At what point in the season are we at? What's their activity level at? All kinds of things dictate where the fish are. But wherever they are, you're going to be able to, catch them. For the most part with this technique. Some days are better than others, and listen, it's still fishing, right? So there's some days they do and some days they don't. But knowing where the fish are and what they're doing and be able to use this technique effectively really makes it that much more, enjoyable and gives you more chances at it.
In general, how late into the season will you concentrate on kings and then switch over to steelhead?
It kind of depends on the year, and I know it seems like a vague answer, but it really does. Some years are, this year, for example, is pretty banner year. There's a bunch of fish that are still out at the pier heads and even out on the shelf yet, which is pretty incredible for this time of the year. It's loaded up. There's a lot of fish that still need to come into the rivers, and so kingfishing is going to be really good through this entire month, probably, well into October on some rivers. And depending on where people are fishing, the east side of the state's always a little later than the west side. So there's going to be opportunities into October, no matter where you're fishing kings in the state this year. Some years it's sooner than that. Some years it goes a little later. It depends on water conditions, and the lake determines everything. So, but yeah, we'll be effective with kings for a number of weeks yet.
All right, so you're casting this big Rapala or whatever it is, and you're cranking along. A 20-pound fish comes out of a log jam, comes out of nowhere. He smashes this thing. He grabs it. What's that fight like?
Oh, it's just so good. For people that have never done it, it's so hard. It's everything you would hope it would be on a big fish. I've had guys that have fished all over the world, and I've been fortunate enough to fish in pretty cool places. But guys that have really gotten into like some of the big game fish throughout the world, saltwater type fish, or some of the freshwater fish are available that are kind of crazy big and stuff. They put this up against. They come do this and say it's as good or better than anything that they've experienced doing that. It's really, really good.
What tackle do you need to handle these fish, and what baits too?
So if I tell somebody they're going to go out and they want to equip for themselves for this, I like kind of a 9.5 foot rod, medium to heavy action, spinning rod, obviously, and then the reel is where if I tell people, if they want to know where am I putting my money, put your money in the reel. You want to get a spinning reel that's got two things: good line capacity and a really good drag, because that's what's fighting your fish. So spend a little less money on the rod, put your money into that reel, get a good quality reel that's got a really good drag on it, got some good line capacity, and then I'm generally spooling them with braid, usually 20-pound braid, and I go right to the crankbait, depending on what I'm using. There's a bunch of options there, but right to it. No swivels, no leaders. You don't need to use a leader. These fish are not even going to see the leader. They're coming up behind it or from the side. They are not shying away from anything. And you don't want, the more connection points you have, whether it's with swivels or leaders and all of that, it's just more opportunities for those fish to take advantage of it and break you off. So braid right to the crankbait, cast it straight across from you or quartering slightly downstream into jams, into runs, into pools, and point the rod at the water and just bring it back on a nice, easy retrieve and hang on.
So with braid then, okay, I mean, you're going to get hung up in the logs. There's no way around it. You just kiss that bait goodbye then?
No, you can, a lot of times, and there's little techniques that you do. You lift the rod high and kind of bounce it, hit it, as far as just back and forth real quick. A lot of times that'll come off. You'd be surprised doing this. We just don't hang up very much at all. One of the other things, if you're in a boat, get yourself the telescoping plug retrievers. They're $20, and you use it twice, you'll pay for itself. And you can go right over to it, run your line right down it, right to the plug, and it'll push right off. So, that's something, if you're fishing out of a boat, you definitely want to have one of those. But we just don't get hung up that much. Most of the time, that lip will bounce right over them if you're hitting them. And if you're hitting a lot of stuff, go to a little shallower runner so you're coming right over top of it.
These big fish must just crush these baits, though. They must destroy these baits.
They destroy them many times, yeah. So, I learned real quick I couldn't kind of go on the cheap with the baits. I had to, because we just lost so many fish. And you'd come back with just the lip or half of a bait. I've got boxes full of them at my house over the years of baits that were destroyed by fish. So, yeah, you that's part of it. They're big, strong fish, and you got to get after them pretty good once you hook them up to get them out of logs and stuff. So it's fun. Rarely did I have people ever get upset because they lost a fish due to it breaking a bait. It's a pretty good story at that point.
It sure is.
I knew one on and get out there and go get another one. So.
You talk about things that change your course in life. You discovering casting crankbaits in the river was one of them, which led to you and one of your clients catching a world record brown trout using that technique, if I remember right. What was that like, and how did that change things?
Yeah, we were fishing King September 9th, 9909. So we just kind of celebrated 14 years ago that happened, and we were out fishing salmon, casting crankbaits. We'd gotten a couple kings that morning, and we're just going through a run, and Tom cast it out and hooked up this big fish. We knew it was big right away. It kind of tail come out of the water, and you just see this big paddle of a tail. And I said to Tom right when it did that, I'm like, my gosh, Tom, that's a big one. And it tucked off into the jam, into the logs, and went up around stuff. And there's no way we should have landed that fish where we hooked it. And it just swam its way out of everything. And Tom was incredibly good on the rod and did a masterful job with that fish. We got it out in the middle of the river, and I'll never forget. We thought it was just a really big king right up until literally like 5 seconds before I put it in the net. And I'll never forget that moment of sliding the net under that fish and just in complete awe of like, what did we just do? And had no idea world record at the time. That it just doesn't pop into your head, right? And we started taking measurements and weights. I had a boga grip that went up to 40 pounds, and I lifted the fish up, and it bottomed out. It went to 30, I think, and it bottomed out, and there was still, a quarter of the fish left in the water. And I'm like, what the heck do we have here? And called a buddy of mine who was a guide who had previously had the Michigan State record brown trout, and told him what we had. He's like, dude, you got the new state record for sure, and you might have a world record. And so he was on the river with a client, pulled off, picked up a certified scale at a place and brought it right to the ramp, and we put that fish on the scale, and it went up over 40 pounds. And again, that was another moment where I started screaming like a little girl. And we took it into town, and you were part of that. Then the rest of that day was absolute chaos, and then the days and weeks that followed was pretty crazy. And it certified as the all-tackle IGFA world record, which broke a record that had been set down in Arkansas. It had stood for 19 years. We broke the Michigan State record by 5 pounds, which is still the Michigan State record. And it since a few years ago was broke by a fish in New Zealand. But stood for a number of years, and it was a pretty incredible experience.
Oh, so that fish is still the Michigan State record?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's got to change things. They had to give the guiding business a big shot in the arm there for a couple of years, for sure.
The phone did not stop ringing for a while.
Tim, I love hearing your stories. We didn't even get into this whole concept of whitetail hunting, which I know is another passion of yours. Maybe we'll save that for a future conversation.
Perfect. Always enjoy talking to you, Mike. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. Tim Roller. You can find him on Facebook. The guy, he's just... he's involved in a lot of things, and these days he's helping a lot of people, and I think that's very, very cool. We will, I remember when he caught that fish, yeah. Actually, I didn't hear about it from Tim, but I heard about it from Paul Schlafly. He said, hey, because I wanted to have Paul on the show that week, and I was on the phone with Paul. He said, rather than me, you might want to get in touch with your buddy Tim Roller. And he told me why. I was like, yeah, we'll talk to you next week, Paul. Anyway, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things to talk about before we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on News Radio 790 WSGW and 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm here with Jonathan Dent. John doing a wonderful job, as always, even this week on a show that just, it was, it's been challenging in some ways. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reeder create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. This time of year, what can you have the folks from Reeder work on for you? Well, pretty soon, they're going to be shutting down those sprinkler systems. There's going to be fall cleanup. Now, you look at you might be able to do that yourself, right? But it's going to take you a few hours, and it's going to take away a couple of valuable evenings or a valuable weekend. Do you really want to do that this time of year? Do you really want to be off the water or out of the woods this time of year so you can clean up your yard or your property or cut down some, trim some trees or whatever it is? Do you want to do that? If so, go ahead. I would suggest that maybe a better use of your time, especially at this time of year, is to make a phone call, have the folks from Reader come over and take care of it. And looking into that next season, if you're looking to remove some snow, they can take care of your snow removal as well. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. I was thinking about Tim Roller and his client catching that world record brown trout. I remember that vividly. I also remember just 2 years ago when the new state record king salmon was caught. Captain Bobby Sullivan, one of his captains. I never thought I would see a new state record king salmon. I thought, what was the heydays of the 80s or 90s, whenever it was, that the fish were so big, I thought that would be the end of it. We'd never see a bigger fish. What I would really love to see, and I feel like this could happen, a new state record walleye. Current record 17 pounds, 3 ounces, caught out of the Pine River, which was a tributary of the Manistee. A long time, like 1959 or something, a long time ago. That record has stood forever. I'd like to see that one broken, whatever the correct English is. What else? A couple of things I want to take care of here before we take our final break of the show and turn it over to wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I was talking earlier in the show about the numbers of deer harvested in the youth hunt. And despite claims by some people that the youth hunt decimates our Michigan whitetail herd, roughly 5,000 animals were taken across the state during the 2-day season. Of the 5,000, roughly 4,000 were bucks. I'm a huge supporter of the youth hunt, but I wouldn't mind seeing us go to a does-only hunt. I think that would take some of the social pressure off the hunt. Also, it would help to, knock down the doe population, which is, in some parts of our state badly needed. It would also teach these young hunters that a doe is indeed a true trophy animal. I mean, it is far harder to harvest a mature matriarchal doe than it is a 1.5-year-old buck. So I wouldn't mind seeing us go does only. I have been posting and will continue to post a lot of pictures, more recently from the youth hunt. And I love them. I'll post every one of them. Even though some of the pictures aren't the greatest. I mean, to be honest, some of them are a little bit dark. Some of them are a little bit out of focus, a little fuzzy. But, if you've got a kid sitting over a deer with a big smile on their face, I'm going to share the picture. Can I ask you this, though, please? Can you take 5 seconds and push the animal's tongue back in its mouth? I can't tell you how many beautiful pictures I've had already this fall of kids with a huge smile on their face sitting over a beautiful Michigan whitetail, and the tongue is hanging out of its mouth like some bad cartoon. I feel like I should stencil in stars in the animal's eyes like a cartoon. Please, before you start sharing pictures on social media and sending them to Avery to share on the Facebook page, and just reach around, take the tongue, and push it back in the mouth. It makes for so much nicer of a picture. Plus, it doesn't give ammunition, no pun intended, to the people who don't agree with our way of life, and they use pictures like that against us. We don't. Unfortunately, in today's world, we need to do whatever we can to continue to portray hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping in a positive light. Much of that portrayal is done on social media. No longer are we reaching into our wallet and show our buddies a picture. We don't know what the audience is when we post it online. So as a result, just take the extra second, put the animal's tongue in its mouth, frame it up nice, make sure you've got a nice background, and then share the pictures. I want to see your picture. I will post them, right? Listen, I won't let the tongue hanging out of an animal's mouth keep me from posting a picture of a kid with a big smile sitting over a deer. I'd rather not, but I will. I'm more than happy to do it. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Share your pictures. Send me your pictures, your Ask Avery questions. And by the way, we will have this week's question answered next week. I promise you that. Dixie Dave coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. Also, so very glad to be able to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a guy that you know very well. He was on the TV show for years. Had the Old Dixie Inn in Birch Run for many years, then Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse for many years. These days, he's spending his time in semi-retirement and talking with me here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show, and he's with us once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm getting ready for a catering out to Chesaning.
Oh, and I think you're also getting ready for a bear hunt too, aren't you?
Yep, I am. I am so looking forward to this. I've always wanted to hunt with hounds for bear. I did in Florida. I went with hounds for wild boar, but this is going to be a new experience, and I'm geeked, I'm telling you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing the pictures and hearing the story, and we'll talk more about this on next week's show. But in the meantime, David, how about a bear recipe?
Well, we got a bear stew, which is, bear is one of them meats you should really cook in a liquid, whether it's like stew kind or if you're going to make a pot roast or something like that out of bear, because it is kind of a drier meat and it's tough and you really got to cook it a while. So this is going to be for a large batch, a real big one. So you're going to need 3.5 pounds of bear meat, large cubes, nicely trimmed of all fat and silver. You need about 3 pounds of potatoes, cubed large, and store them in water for now. 2 large onions, cubed up large. This is stew-sized pieces we're talking. 5 carrots, half a head of celery, all cubed up large. You're going to need better than bouillon, or you go to a restaurant supply place and you can get beef base. You want to enhance that flavor, About a cup and a half of red wine. Maybe 6 or 8 cloves of garlic, diced up fine, and some cornstarch. So in a real nice heavy fry pan or a heavy bottom pan, you want to be able to get it really hot, a little bit of olive oil, and then brown the meat on all sides in batches. Don't overcrowd it, and put it in a roasting pan. That's about the biggest pan you're probably going to have. And then you can, after you get the meat out, you're going to throw the vegetables in there. And you can do it in smaller batches, except for the potatoes. You want to keep them stored in water until just near the end of this dinner. And after you get the vegetables sauteed around for a little while to break the flavor loose, and if you like, oregano or Italian spice, you could add that to this at this point when you're sauteing the vegetables, because it's not going to burn, because you're going to have a little bit of water cast off from the veggies. And then near the very end, add the garlic, stir that around for a little while, put the vegetables in, and add a cup of red wine to the bottom of the pan, and you want to bring that up to a boil, and you want to constantly stir it. And that's going to pick up all of that flavor that was either from the meat and the vegetables. And then so you're going to add the stock to a mixture of vegetables and meat and the rest of the red wine. Stir well, make sure you get it all good in the corners, and then you can add melted cornstarch to the thickness that you like. I'd bake it uncovered for at least 3 hours or until tender. If you got a pressure cooker, that would work even better. And you could do this in a crock pot too. And about 30 to 40 minutes before the meal is done, you want to add the potatoes, sans the water. And then you could serve this over noodles or rice or hot biscuits. We made this for the TV show, and I've made this numerous times with other meat and bear meat, too.
I feel like pressure cookers these days have kind of been replaced by crock pots. Are they still, it's a pressure cooker? What's the reason for using that, Dave?
Well, you put it under pressure because it's one of them units that has a lid that you kind of tighten down, and it screws down, and it's got a gauge on top, and you can go to your owner's manual about this, and it'll tell you how much, for say, if it was a beef stew, you could substitute that for bear meat, and that would tell you how much pressure to keep it at for how long. And that really cuts down on the cooking time by a way lot. In crock pot, you could leave it on basically almost overnight.
Now, bear meat, though, you said is you got to treat this a little bit special. For one thing, it tends to be dry, like wild game in general. But isn't there a parasite or something in there if you don't cook it well?
Yeah, trichinosis.
Ah.
It used to be in commercially raised pork years and years ago, but I think I read someplace not that long ago, maybe within the last couple of years, that there's never been any trichinosis in the commercially raised pork. But bear definitely has trichinosis, and you'd like to freeze that. I think it's either 30 or 60 days you should freeze it before you cook it, because it has to kill that parasite.
So cooking alone doesn't do that?
I don't believe it does. From what I've read, it lends me to believe that you should freeze it first.
Well, always good advice from you, Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I wish you a lot of luck on your bear hunt, and I'll look forward to hearing the details next week.
Oh, man, I'm geeked.
Good luck, David. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. I say this every week, though, but you are as well. Because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason for Dave to be on the show. There'd be no reason for me to sit in front of this microphone every week for 3 hours. There'd be no reason for me to do the social media posts, the Wednesday night lives, the behind the mic segments, all that good stuff. I do want to hear from you, though. I want to see your pictures. I want to hear your questions, your stories. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. It's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. My website, mikeaveryoutdoors.com. From there, you can get to all the social media outlets and more. My name is Mike Avery, and I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.